pagans.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. My name is Phoenix Coffin Williams, and I am going to be your host for the Millennial Magician Archives. I want to take a moment to give you an introduction about what the Millennial Magician Archives is, how it came to be, and the future of this project here. So first and foremost, the Millennial Magician Archive is kind of like a video diary and a photo diary of the various ways that I use magic and the various ways that I interpret magical doctrine. I am a proud millennial, and I get into frequent discussions, conversations, debates with people who have problems or seedy comments about millennials. But I genuinely do believe that we have a perspective that is worth highlighting, especially as a group of people who are coming into our own and who are going to be taking the reins from the previous generation. So I do a lot of discussion about how to use magic, why to use magic, ways to make magic stronger, and really how all of this comes together to shape the reality that I want to be living in. It began as a simple little hashtag in social media and on YouTube whenever I did a video or a post about magic or a magical technique. And then it moved into some long intentional videos that described or showcased magic that I did for clients or that I did for people who I was providing spiritual direction for. And now it's turning into an ongoing series that you can watch on Pagan World TV. A little bit about me. So like I said, my name is Phoenix Coffin Williams. I am an archpriest and a very proud witch of a Wiccan temple and a larger Wiccan organization. I'm located in Buffalo, New York, and I'm currently standing in Forest Lawn Cemetery, which is a place that I consider to be a place of power. And that'll be something that I talk a little bit more about later on in a few episodes moving forward. In addition to being an initiated priest and a proud witch, I am also a licensed clinical mental health counselor. And a lot of the ways that I use magic and a lot of the ways that I interact with the community is from a place of healing, is from a place of recovery and reconciliation. And I really love demonstrating the interaction between magical faith, spiritualities, technologies, and practices, and mental health, mental well-being, moving towards wellness and away from the idea of illness, pathology, sickness. And so overall, I define both my magical practice and my mental health practice as decolonized, destigmatized, and depathologized. So when it comes to decolonization, I actively reject a lot of the things that are placed upon me, placed upon people that look like me, placed upon people who pray and act like me by colonial powers. So this could be the patriarchy as a prime example, and really resisting those things in exchange for my own personal authenticity and well-being. And I encourage other people to do that as well. Depathologized means that while I am a mental health practitioner, while I am a therapist, while I do have the ability to diagnose and treat illness, the approach that I take is not that people are sick or that people are ill, so I take away the pathological component of that. I depathologize people and work on helping them get to the root cause of the things that are causing their distress, in hopes that it will lead to more fulfilling, long-lasting well-being and recovery and resiliency. And what I mean by destigmatized is basically I reject the idea of stigma. I reject the role that stigma plays in forcing people into an identity. I reject the role that stigma plays in forming groups of people. And I allow everyone that I work with and I interact with to develop their own identity and to develop their own sense of self. And so I am very much looking forward to showcasing that to you magically, as a community activist, as a spellcaster, as someone who prays, as someone who leads a temple, as someone who interacts on the local, the national, and the international level, as someone who is interested in making magic more available for people and making what magic can do for the world more available for people. I'm going to actually be dedicating the first episode of the Millennial Magician Archive to a survey of virtues, values, and ethics. I do believe that standing for something, knowing what that is, and knowing the various ways that your moral compass can point, and how that calls you to act, does make for some really strong and powerful magic. So I will be reviewing 9 different virtues, and I will also be comparing them to one of my favorite practices, which is yoga. I'll be comparing virtues, values, and goals to the yamas and the niyamas that represent the 8 limbs of yoga. So I do hope you will keep watching. I hope you are at the very least interested so far. And I look forward to showing you more about the Millennial Magician Archive. In addition to, the magic that I practice and the way that I work, I do hope to be showing you the perspectives of other millennial magical practitioners. So not just myself, but a variety of voices from a variety of people. And I do also want to showcase a juxtaposition between how the older generation views magic and magical practice and how we as millennials, or how a bunch of millennial people move forward into the magical realm. And I do also hope to showcase what the next generation views magic as and how they use it and how they wield it. Hopefully to identify the fact that magic is absolutely becoming more widespread, more tangible, more available, and is becoming demystified, so that folks can learn to recognize that magic is actually very natural, and that it flows through all things. And I'm hoping to exemplify that with this work. So stay tuned, stick with me. Things are going to get a lot more interesting moving forward. And of course, may your magic be real, may your magic be tangible. Let's have some fun. Today, I am going to spend some time talking about virtues, specifically the yamas and the niyamas. I do think that it's remarkably important for any practice to have some virtues, something that you are moving towards, something that you can use to guide you to become the most potent, the best version of yourselves. If you've ever heard the phrase stand for something or fall for anything, I think that having a set of values, having a set of principles to help you orient yourself is one of the best ways to make sure that you can be your best self. And so as someone who is a yoga teacher and who is studying to continue teaching yoga and becoming, more potent, being my own best self, I do look to the yamas and the niyamas as a guide. So of course the yamas are the restraints. These are the things that you want to make sure you are not doing under any circumstance, on a yogic path, on a path towards enlightenment, on your way up the mountain. So the first one to discuss is ahimsa. And ahimsa translates directly into non-violence. It is the yama of non-violence and non-harming. It is the foundational yama. And if at any time there appears to be a conflict between the yamas and the niyamas, or if there appears to be a conflict between your life circumstance and how you want to behave, it's important to always uphold the yama of ahimsa, or nonviolence, first. In order to understand the impulse for violence, it's important to spend some meditation time contemplating how that even arises. How does one move into a place of wanting to commit an act of violence or an act of harm? And so this is one, putting your hands on someone, beating somebody up. And then there's also some more subtle ways of being violent that also come under the category of ahimsa. So where does violence come from? To quote Master Yoda from the Jedi Council, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to the dark side. That is one way to recognize the path towards violence. Fear of lacking might move you towards utilizing violence to take resources from someone else. Feeling like you know better than someone else, and so you utilize your words to cut them down or be derisive or derogatory is also an act of violence. So it's important to spend some time, do some shadow work to think about the various ways that you commit acts of violence, or the various ways that I myself commit acts of violence, and how to mitigate that. Setting unrealistic expectations for myself, harming myself, is also a violation of ahimsa. One of the ways that I do contemplate ahimsa and combine it with asana practice is through goddess pose. And so for goddess pose, we start off in a nice strong mountain and a nice strong tadasana. And we just take one of our feet, left foot, right foot, it doesn't really matter. And we slide it back, towards the back part of our mat. So boom, now we're kind of doing a little walk. And then from here, we rotate that back leg about 45 degrees. Maybe 90 degrees is more realistic. And we just follow that with the other foot. And so now we're facing the long edge of our mat. Toes pointed inwards a little bit. And then from here, we just go ahead and bend at the knees, and we take this pose, and we want our hips to get down towards the height of the knees. One of the things that I do like to do is I like to combine this pose with the Anjali Mudra. So hands overhead, bring palms together, thumbs touching heart. And as I sink into this pose, I also explore the idea of non-violence and non-harming through prayer. O Mother Goddess, help me to recognize the divinity in all your creation. Help me to remember at all times to not harm and to not hinder. And even more, help me to remember to use all the gifts granted to me by your Holy Spirit for the betterment of all human beings. Back straight. Sits bones driven down into or towards the floor. Sink in. Somodati. The second yama or restraint is that of satya, which is the yama of truthfulness or non-lying. Upholding this particular yama is beneficial because it leads to a more full, authentic life, right? Truthfulness, non-lying, is literally me giving myself permission to lead an authentic life, rich, full, and meaningful. Again, in order to understand the impulse to engage in dishonesty or lying, it's important to take a look at any of the historical events in which we have participated in dishonesty and study that for a second. Under what conditions are you most likely to lie? White lie, fib, lie through omission, misrepresent your credentials. Any of these things count as a violation of satya. So maybe it's insecurity, fear of being embarrassed, maybe a fear of not measuring up or not meeting some unrealistic expectations might move you to participate in some dishonest behavior. Examine that. One of the ways that I like to meditate on satya is in hero's pose. And so for this one, we're just going to kneel a little bit. We're going to have our toes slightly touching at first. Knees, thighs slightly touching at first. And then slowly open these knees to a little bit more than hip distance apart. Then open those toes a little bit and start to lower yourself down so that you are sitting in between those legs, in between those toes. And so for me, I kind of ease myself into it, widen my legs as I need to, readjust. There's a way that you want to feel when you're in this pose, right? You want to feel it here in these thighs. You also want the backs of your feet or the top sides of your feet to be straight onto the ground or onto the mat. Back straight a little bit, but torso in, like pushing forward just a little bit. And just relax into it. Let yourself sink into the pose. And again, you can choose to pray, or you can meditate on the throat chakra and using it for truthfulness, using it to spread honesty, using it to uplift. The third yama that I would like to discuss is asteya. And asteya means non-stealing. And of course, on the surface, it means not taking things that don't belong to you. Not taking someone else's money, not taking someone else's jewelry, not taking someone else's car, belongings, material things, but also on another level, making sure that you're not taking energy that people don't want to give to you, or maybe that the earth doesn't want to give to you. It might mean not taking attention away from someone else who needs attention. It might also mean not taking resources that are meant for someone else and doing the work to make sure that you are finding the resources and the opportunities that are meant for you. Also, asteya means not stealing someone else's joy or the joy of other people and allowing people to have happiness or joy, even if that means at the moment you are feeling irritable or irritated. I like to contemplate asteya and non-stealing in easy pose. So for this one, we're just going to go ahead and start with our legs right out in front of us. What I do is I lift myself up with my arms first, so my butt, my sits are off the floor. Fold in my right leg so that it's underneath my thigh. Fold in my left leg so that it's underneath my thigh. Then I sit my thighs and my knees down so that they are on top of each opposite leg. And easy. And from here I just sit with my hands, palms down, resting them on my knees. Elongate the spine, sit up straight, shoulders splayed back, sits bone driving down into the ground. Then also maybe focusing on making sure that my knees are as flat as possible on my legs. The fourth yama is brahmacharya, which means walk with God. It also has connotations of moderation, and it's conceptualized as the right use of energy. So in my community and a lot of the folks that I work with, one of the ways that we express that energy is not being used the correct way or is not being used in moderation is through the phrase, "you're doing too much." Right? So if anyone has ever said to you, "you're doing too much," or "that's an overdose, that's an overkill," brahmacharya is being violated. When it comes to moderation or perhaps maybe temperance, overindulging in things like overeating and drinking or substance use that forms into an addiction might also be indication of a violation of brahmacharya. One of the ways that you can work on upholding brahmacharya is by contemplating what equals enough. When is enough enough? Is it a violation of brahmacharya to have 2 plates of dinner? Is it a violation of brahmacharya to have 3 drinks at the bar? Is it a violation of brahmacharya to call someone 3 times in a row if you have not heard from them or if they haven't gotten you back? Is it a violation of brahmacharya to send a wall of text messages to someone because you are having feelings about a situation? Maybe you're in a relationship or a friendship. What is the right use of energy? What is the skillful use of energy? And how can you allow stories of the gods or the examples that God or divinity sets for us help us fall into a place of the right use of energy, of the right kind of determination of moderation and temperance? I like to practice king dancer pose when it comes to contemplating moderation. One of the reasons is because it's one of balance. So for king dancer, pick a foot to start out on. Right? What foot do you want to be standing on first? I will go ahead and just pick my left foot, and I'll go ahead and start to root that onto the mat, onto the ground. And I make sure that my toes are splayed out. From here, I just bring one leg up, and I just work on balancing on this foot, balancing on my left foot. From here, I just lean forward at the waist, and I allow this back foot to kick back. And I go ahead and take my right hand, and I go ahead and grab that that right foot. And I continue to do that fold. I kick that foot back just a little bit so I can feel that stretch on the right side. Put my my left hand forward. Engage my breathing as a way of helping me focus. Moderation. Brahmacharya. Every time I practice on one foot, I always practice on another. So I will put my right foot down. And I'll work on splaying those toes, bringing my left foot up, working on balancing on this right foot. Bend a little bit forward, grab that left foot with my left hand, kick back, feel that stretch on the left side, bring that right hand up. And here in this king dancer, I contemplate brahmacharya, moderation, the right use of energy, walking with God. And here in this king dancer, I contemplate brahmacharya, moderation, the right use of energy, walking with God. The fifth and final yama, the fifth and final restraint to contemplate is aparigraha. And that literally means non-clinging or non-attachment, non-grasping. And so this could mean not clinging to things that you might like but don't necessarily serve you appropriately. This might mean not clinging to harmful relationships. This might mean not clinging to harmful patterns. This might mean acknowledging that, a job that pays really well might be eating away at your soul, and so you've got to kind of reckon with what it means to not cling to that. Non-clinging and non-attachment also means examining what your grief process is like. And coming to terms with the temporary nature of our reality and our existence. Upholding aparigraha could look like letting go of things on purpose. So cleaning out your closet, so to speak, or literally, and get rid of things that don't serve you, that don't fit you, things that you haven't worn in a while. It might mean going through that DVD collection and recognizing that you are mostly streaming now. And so DVDs aren't serving you, and figuring out what to do with those things. It also might mean taking a look at your surroundings. Are there things that you are hoarding? Of course, the mind can come up with a bunch of reasons to hold on to things, but that's attachment. And is that attachment necessary? Let it go if it's not necessary, if it's not serving you, if it's not serving a purpose in your life. Holding on to a particular moment that might be filled with happiness or joy as a way of avoiding another moment that might be less happy or less joyous is also a way of violating aparigraha. So recognizing the present moment and accepting what is instead of hoping for things to be different or hoping for things to be the way that you want them to be is a way of upholding a parigraha and practicing non-clinging and non-attachment. For this yama, I look to eagle position because one, it's a balance, and I personally love to work on and need to work on my one-legged, balance positions. And so pairing them with contemplations of the yamas means that one, I am frequently going to the things that I want to guide my life, and two, I am working on things that I need to be better at. And so the more that I see improvement in my balance poses, that means that I've actually been contemplating and thinking about the yamas or the niyamas very frequently. So for eagle, for Garudasana, again, pick a leg that you're going to be balancing on. So you can choose to start from Tadasana, from mountain, if you want, and pick a foot. I'm just going to go ahead and step forward on my left foot, lift up my right foot, point the toe down, and start to work on that balance. And in this case for me, practicing a parigraha might also mean letting go of any unhelpful thoughts or feelings that I have about success or what I should look like doing a pose, and just work on mastering it in the present moment. The floating foot, cross it over that leg. Find your center, keep balancing. Clip that foot around your rooted calf. Arms out. Find that center. Arms forward. Keep that center. Put that left elbow inside that right elbow. Twist those hands so palms are touching as best as possible. And go ahead and lift up on those arms. Down. And then again on the other side. Lift up that left foot now. Find that balance. Point that toe. Hook it over the rooted leg. We want this foot to work on getting behind this calf, the one that's rooted. Again, arms for balance. Splay those toes. Arms forward. This time, put the left elbow inside the right elbow and twist. Raise those arms up. Keep that center. Release. So those are the yamas, the restraints, the things you want to refrain from doing. And those are some of my favorite poses that I like to engage in when contemplating them. On the second side of the virtue coin, so on the one hand we have the yamas, those are the restraints, the things not to do. On the other side of that, we have the niyamas. These are the observances, and these are the things that we want to make sure that we are participating in as often as possible. We want these things to, guide what we do participate in, or how we do act. So the yamas, don't do, avoid doing that, let those things go. Niyamas, observe them, work on them, contemplate them, and bring them into your life on purpose. First niyama is called saucha, and it means cleanliness or purity. And this can be practiced, of course, by keeping good hygiene, washing your body, brushing your teeth, combing your hair. It can also be practiced by keeping your environment clean, dusting, sweeping the floors, vacuuming, mopping, keeping the dishes clean, doing your laundry, making sure you have fresh clothes to be in. This could also mean making sure that your conversations are clean and pure and appropriate for the moment. So practicing saucha in the workplace, making sure that we're not engaging in any unhelpful or harmful conversations in the presence of coworkers who might not want to be a part of those. Making sure that we are keeping our word is also a way of keeping your reputation pure or clean. So you can uphold or practice saucha in that way as well. And one of the ways that I think about saucha and asana is through cobra. And so from standing, of course, get down on the ground. You can maybe kneel if you want to. You can maybe straighten out those back toes so that they and the backs of the feet so that they are flat on the ground or flat on the mat. Push those knees out. Lower yourself down into plank with these elbows onto your sides. Once your chest and your chin are close to the ground, just go ahead and push up the upper part of your body. Head towards the sky, making sure that you are driving that pelvis into the ground. But maybe it's not necessarily touching the ground all the way. Maybe there is a little bit of hover. Saucha is cleanliness and purity. Good hygiene, caring for my body, caring for my mind and my thoughts. Keeping them away, or acknowledging and moving away from thoughts of harm or violence. Making sure that I don't participate in anything that violates other people or their rights. Cleanliness and purity. The second niyama is santosha. Santosha means contentment, being happy with what you have, allowing yourself to enjoy the level that you are at. Maybe after experiencing success or reaching a goal, either short-term or long-term, allowing yourself to sit in that moment and being happy that you have achieved. Being happy that you do have dinner. Being happy that you have friends who love you. Focusing on the things that you are grateful for is a great way to practice santosha. And this is contrary to constantly chasing the next thing. This is contrary to longing for things that you might not have. But this is recognizing with gratitude the things that you do have and allowing yourself to feel happy about it. So moving into a light forward bend, we're gonna sit straight up with our sits bones, directly beneath us, or maybe sitting slightly forward of them. And we are going to drive our heels outward towards the front, bringing our toes a little bit back towards us. Boom, this is where we're at right here. And from here, arms up just a little bit and reach down for those toes. It's a forward bend. The third niyama, the third observance is tapas. And this one is the niyama that's related to discipline, transformation through willpower. So this is engaging in a practice regularly and sticking to it. This is acknowledging that you have a schedule and choosing to do things that check off all the things on that schedule. This is getting up daily and engaging in the asana practice or engaging in the meditation practice. This is on purpose practicing those breathing techniques, those pranayama techniques every day for 3 to 5 minutes if that's what you do. Willpower and discipline. Think about how powerful these things are together in helping you actually achieve, and how you actually use those things to transform. Tapas is also implicated in your ability to end patterns or behaviors that are not helpful for you. So tapas is definitely implicated if you want to quit smoking, or if you want to begin an exercise program, or if you want to master a new language. It's tapas, it's that observance that really lends the energy and lends the strength towards being successful. So from Tadasana, from mountain, we are going to straighten our legs, and we're going to move into a forward fold. So slowly, starting at the hip, start to fold over and allow the spine to kind of waterfall into that forward fold as you bring your head a little bit closer to those knees. And you can use your hands to help bring you in a little bit closer. Have your elbows, to the sides a little bit. The fourth niyama that I would like to discuss, the fourth out of 5, is the niyama svadhyaya or swadhyaya. It is self-study, self-reflection, and then I also refer to it as shadow work. So this is taking a look at under what conditions you behave a certain way. If you behave generously, what leads up to that? If you behave in a stingy manner, if you withhold from other people, where you could be generous, what are the conditions that lead to that? If you are someone who snaps at other people, or who is quick to anger, has a quick temperament, and you're looking to change that, what conditions lead up to you behaving in those kind of ways? Basically, swadhyaya is the niyama that encourages you to recognize that your shit stinks and there's something that you can do about it. And I choose to practice bridge pose while contemplating swadhyaya, because in my head, swadhyaya is the niyama, the bridge between who I currently am and who I want to be. And so that's how I think about it. And I don't know how that came to me. Just one day I was contemplating the niyamas and how I wanted to represent them on the mat, and bridge pose is what came to mind. Swadhyaya is the bridge between who I am and who I want to become. And so for bridge, start sitting, or laying down. Bring those knees up. Those soles of the feet are flat on the ground. Our feet are parallel with our thighs. And then from here, we drive our pubis and our tailbones towards each other, and we lift our buttocks up off the mat. We can take our hands and put them right underneath us to help us stay on our shoulders. And so that's bridge, and that is swadhyaya. The last niyama to discuss, the fifth one of the observances, is Ishvara Pranidhana, and it is the surrender to divinity. So I like to think about this as a part of my work. I do work with people who struggle with addiction and who struggle with patterns that cause them harm, and letting go of those. And in the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, things like that, they have the first step towards recovery from these things as being recognizing that there is a power greater than yourself. And so I think of recognizing a power greater than myself, and that reminds me of Ishvara Pranidhana. One of the ways that I do surrender to divinity is I contemplate nature. So I contemplate the trees and how large they are and what they do for the planet. I also take a look at my life and how far I've come. I am not the same person today that I was last year or a year before that. And I take a look at some of the near misses that have happened in my life, things that could have gone horribly wrong, that have worked out phenomenally. And I kind of give gratitude to higher power for that. I give gratitude to the goddess for that. I give gratitude to the God for that. I give gratitude to my ancestors for that. And I practice and contemplate Ishvara Pranidhana in two ways. One is in garland pose, and then the second way is with Anjali Mudra. So I frequently think of Anjali Mudra as the mudra that I go to if I want to make myself into an antenna for divine frequency. And so what we want to do for garland pose is we want to get into a squatting position. We want our feet to be as close together as possible, but we also want to keep in mind that we're going to be squatting and putting our torso in between our legs. So I start off with shoulder width apart, and I don that squatting position, being sure that I'm also keeping the soles of my feet planted into the ground. Once in squat, lean forward, put these elbows in between those knees. For Anjali Mudra, bring those hands together, thumb to thumb, index to index, so on and so forth, keeping the center three together and splaying the pinkies away from the center three and the thumb away from the center three, and bringing that right on in towards the heart. So that is garland pose with Anjali Mudra, and the way that I contemplate and devote myself to an understanding of Ishvara Pranidhana. So as I stated a little bit earlier, I am a Wiccan archpriest, and the tradition that I serve in has its own set of virtues that I have studied and have worked towards perfecting in myself, that I continue to work towards perfecting in myself. And my practice of yoga and my observances of the yamas and the niyamas also help with that. They reinforce that. One of the things that I do like to do is I like to take a look at the ethics and the virtues and the standards for behavior from a bunch of different places, and I like to draw parallels or draw golden threads towards the things that they have in common. So for example, my Karelian tradition, the Karelian Church, upholds 9 virtues: honesty, generosity, courage, service, practicality, modesty, compassion, piety. Those are the 9 virtues that guide the standards for behavior for the high priesthood. And in contemplating those, I find that they are actually not that different from the yamas and the niyamas of the yoga practice. So practicality is definitely linked with aparigraha and the non-clinging and the non-attachment. Brahmacharya, walking with God, the right use of energy and moderation, is absolutely encapsulated in the practicality, the temperance kind of virtue. Surrender to divinity is definitely piety. Compassion is the same as non-harming and non-violence with ahimsa. Honesty, again, non-lying. There's a parallel between these things, and finding parallels between the various types of ethics out there in the world's religions, and in some of these philosophies is one of the ways that I help reinforce what I do stand for. So the more that I see these common threads in these faiths, the more I'm like, you know what? Yes, this is absolutely a virtue that I need to uphold in my life. And then again, I do like to practice sun salutations in conjunction with the contemplation of the 9 Corellian virtues and the yamas and the niyamas. So sun salutations are a very old, very widespread way of practicing yoga and giving thanks for the power and the gifts that the sun gives us. And there are 3 forms. There are sun salutations A, B, and C. Surya Namaskar is the Sanskrit name for the sun salutations. And so when I am working on fortifying myself, when I'm working on my foundation, when I am working on trying to improve my poses and postures, when I'm working on moving into a place of meditation, I have come to practice a round of sun salutations before I get started into anything else. So when it comes time to practice a sabbat or an esbat, and I know that I'm going to be drawing down the sun or drawing down the moon or channeling for the spirits, I will begin my day with some sun salutations as a way of fortifying myself, addressing my energetic body. I do have some visualizations of drawing down that sun energy into my body as I participate in these. So take a look at sun salutations A, B, and C, and then also see if you can visualize any kind of energetic component that might be helpful for you. And I, of course, do encourage you to practice sun salutations, even if that's the only yoga you practice. Go ahead and get some sun salutations in. There is a sequence called moon salutations, and those are great to practice on full moon esbats as well, and to get yourself ready for drawing down the moon and practicing gratitude for the fact that the moon is a part of our life and it impacts gravity and it impacts the tides, and being thankful for and acknowledging the gifts of the moon. So yeah, sun salutations, practicing virtues, giving thanks for the gifts of the sun. Moon salutations, giving thanks for that feminine aspect of creation and reality.